Hello everybody, my name is Luc. I work as an air traffic controller in Pau Airport, and today I would like to introduce you a major activity in our control area, which is parachute dropping area, activity. So this is the area where I work, the whole area with two major airfields. Oh, shit. Two major airfields, Pau and Lourdes, and as you can see, the area is full of dropping zones. They are everywhere, and some of them are quite transparent for air traffic control because they are in areas where there are not a lot of flights, but others are more conflictual for controllers because they are very close to the runway or even under the ILS. So sometimes, as a controller, it can be very difficult to deal with this activity. And moreover, this activity is really unknown in our job, I think, because there are not a lot of airports in which parachute dropping activity is present. So that's why I want to outline this activity today. And first of all, I will talk to you about the different aircraft which are used for parachute dropping, civilian and the military, and then we'll see closer two areas, one which is a military area and another which is a civilian, 307, 301. To begin with the civilian aircraft, as you can see, there are quite small and old aircraft with bad performance, so it's sometimes tricky to insert them in the traffic because they are very slow, and yet they also you have to take care with the wake turbulence of the plane before them because there are light aircraft, and the planes like the Pilatus have a big rate of descent. The pilots like doing this, so it's sometimes hard to deal with that, to insert them in the traffic. For the military aircraft, there are very old aircraft. For example, the Transall is a very, very old aircraft, and it's quite heavy, so it causes problem because it creates turbulence to light aircraft. As in Pau, there are a lot of light aircraft, and all these planes are also very slow, and it's difficult to manage and to deal with that. So let's begin with a military area, which is the zone 307, which is very close to the runway. It's only 500 meters to the south of the runway of Pau. So it's a zone which can be active during the whole day and whole night. And it goes from the ground to flight level 195. And it interferes with everything in Pau. And to reduce this interference, on the ground, on the area, there are military who have to look at the parachute falling, and they have to warn us if there is a problem with a parachute, if there is a parachute who is going too close to the runway. And the interference are different towards the depending on the level of dropping. So, for example, a dropping below flight level 80, in theory, it doesn't interfere with anything, but we'll see that in practice sometimes it causes problem. A dropping between flight level 80 and 120 only interferes with IFR traffic, and a dropping above flight level 120 will interfere with everything. You cannot have any planes in the control area during a dropping. So this is the runway of Pau. And this is the area, so you can see that that's the interference zone, and you can see it goes above the runway, so it means that it interferes with the runway. And here, all the black curves you can see are the standard departure used by the commercial aircraft, and this zone interferes with all the tracks, so you cannot drop. You cannot clear a dropping during a commercial departure. Then the stacks are different for the plane if it's a low altitude drop or a high altitude drop. So this is the runway of Pau is here, and this is the stack which is used to drop parachutes in the area right there. And when there is an aircraft on final for the runway in Pau, and there is a Transall which is dropping parachutes, it's very close, and often the commercial pilots, they don't really like being very close to a big aircraft on final. So even if it doesn't interfere in theory, yeah, the pilots don't like that. So sometimes a problem. And for the high altitude drops, the runway is just here, and the stack is very close to the runway, and you see that as the zone is very close, when there is a strong wind from the southwest, for example, a parachute can overfly the runway and fall after to the north of the runway. So if there is a commercial aircraft in final, it can cause a lot of problems for us, and we will be responsible if there is an accident between a parachute and an aircraft. And so we always have to calculate if we have time to drop parachutes before an arrival, or if we have to delay the dropping. And that's why the pilot always has to say us how long does the jump last, in order we can calculate if they have time to fall before an IFR flight comes. I will talk about another zone, which is the zone 301, which is a civilian zone in which a lot of parachutists go to train for national championship or even world championship. And it's a bit further from the runway compared to the zone 307. It can only be active during the day, and the ceiling is flight level 145. But the problem is that it interferes with IFR tracks. So let's take the previous chart that I've shown you. This is the runway of Pau, and the area is just here. And you can see this departure is the main standard departure used by airplanes in Pau, and you can see that the zone is just on the departure. So it interferes with this departure and this other, which are also very close to the area. So in general, we have to only give traffic information between the IFR flight and the dropping airplane. But yeah, as it's very close to the runway, we often have to give vectors to the planes to avoid the area, and in order to solve the problem. And as you see, there is a military area just above, so we don't have much place to guide an airplane to avoid the area. And another interference is with a standard arrival in Pau. So when the runway 13 is in use, it means that the plane lands in that order. This is a new procedure which is used for 1 or 2 years. And the first time they used this procedure in Pau, there had been an emergency alert on the aircraft arriving, because they didn't realize there was the zone just above the arrival, and the plane had to go around to avoid the aircraft. So now the dropping pilot has to phone us before taking off, just to know which runway is in use in Pau, and if there is an aircraft arriving on this procedure. Yeah, so to conclude, I hope that you all have understood a bit what's parachute dropping activity for air traffic controllers, and because it is an activity which is unknown in our job, and it's not well recognized in our profession, and so I hope and I think that measure will be taken to take